What's poppin', everyone? Odima here. Let's keep going. In the display department, the Infinix S5 has a 6.6-inch IPS LCD screen with a screen-to-body ratio of 81.9 and a pixel density of 270 ppi. Now, it's a 720p screen, unfortunately, with an aspect ratio of 20:9 as opposed to 19.9:9 on some other phones. But then 720p is decent, but then for a 63,000 naira phone, both phones have MediaTek Helio P22 processor with up to 6 gigs of RAM and 128 gigs of internal storage. So it's decent and a lot for a lot of people. They also come with Android 9 out of the box, which is pretty good if you ask me. And then the Infinix S5 comes with 4 cameras at the back as opposed to 3 on the Tecno Camon 12. More on the cameras in a little bit. But then they also pack some reasonable batteries. The Tecno Camon 12 Pro packs a 3500 mAh battery, while the Infinix S5 packs a 4000 mAh battery. So looking at numbers, in performance, there won't be any difference because they both rock the same chip. But then in battery life, one thing that will actually play out as a deciding ultimate factor in battery life is that Amoled panel on the Tecno Camon 12. Now, I'll make a video explaining this, but Amoled panels are like the best types of displays you can find around. Basically, what happens ultra wide camera, a 2 megapixel depth sensor, and another camera for low light sensitivity. They call it an AI camera. I don't know why they actually do that. Now the Tecno Camon 12 on the other hand has a 16 megapixel main camera, an 8 megapixel ultra wide camera, and a 2 megapixel depth sensor. In the Infinix S5 with the hole punch display, you now get this screen that just looks like as though it's all screen with minimal bezels. It's just a trade-off and it's just a visual thing. If you're not there buying your phone for the visuals, then please just skip on all that. But then, after listening to all this, what do you think? Is the Infinix S5 for you, or would you rather get the Tecno Camon 12? Let me know in the comment sections below. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you later. Peace.